But unlike tales of battle and glory told in loud tones, this story is meant for softness, for sleep, for peace. Together, we will drift slowly through the centuries, from the earliest whispers of Greek culture to the echoes of its legacy in our world today. We will move gently through sun-dappled landscapes, quiet temples, bustling agoras, and quiet olive groves swaying in the breeze. We begin not with warriors or philosophers, but with the land itself. Greece is a country of peninsulas and islands, fragmented and scattered, like pearls tossed across the Aegean Sea. It is a land where the mountains meet the sea, where every valley holds a memory, and every coastline catches the golden light of the sun. The mainland stretches in rugged fingers, while the islands of the Cyclades and Dodecanese, Crete and Rhodes, form stepping stones across the water. This geography so dramatic, so divided shaped the soul of the Greeks. Unlike the vast empires of Egypt or Mesopotamia, Greece never became one great centralized kingdom. Instead, it flourished in small communities, city-states known as polis. Each polis had its own identity, its own gods, its own laws and ambitions, and yet they were bound together by a shared language, shared myths, and shared ways of seeing the world. Long before the grand temples of Athens or the marble statues of Delphi, there were older, quieter beginnings. On the island of Crete, around 2000 BCE, a mysterious and vibrant culture emerged. These were the Minoan seafarers, artists, builders of great palaces. Their world was one of vivid color and curving architecture, of dolphins painted on walls and labyrinthine halls where legend would later place the Minotaur. And from Crete, the story moves northward, to the mainland, to a people we call the Mycenaeans. These were the Greeks of the Bronze Age, the world of Homer's heroes Agamemnon, Achilles, Odysseus. They built strongholds atop hills, buried their kings with gold masks, and sailed across the wine-dark sea to wage war on Troy. Their language an early form of Greekos, written in a script called Linear B, and their myths would one day form the backbone of Greek literature. But then, around 1200 BCE, their world unraveled. The late Bronze Age collapse, a mysterious and far-reaching event, brought the palaces to ruin. Trade routes faltered, writing disappeared. For several centuries, Greece entered a shadowy period, a time we now call the Greek Dark Ages. And yet, in the silence, something stirs. The old stories survive, passed down by word-of-mouth epics of heroes and gods, of longing and pride. Slowly, new villages rise. Iron replaces bronze, potters turn their wheels again, and from this quiet rebirth, the seeds of classical Greece begin to take root. By the 8th century BCE, a transformation begins. Writing returns, now using a modified version of the Phoenician alphabet and innovation that will spread far beyond Greece. With it, poets begin to record ancient songs. One of them, a man named Homer, composes the Iliad and the Odyssey tales of war and homecoming, loss and endurance. These stories, though full of gods and heroes, speak also to human longing and frailty, and they become the spiritual foundation of Greek identity. Soon, the scattered villages grow into city-states. Athens, Sparta, Corinth, Thebes, and dozens more, each with its own walls, its own council, its own way of life. Competition brews, but so too does creativity. Temples rise, markets buzz, ships sail. And above it all, the Greeks begin to ask new questions, not just about how to live, but why. This spirit of inquiry, the search for order in the cosmos, for justice in society, for beauty in form, becomes the hallmark of the Greek world. In the centuries to come, we will see democracy take root in Athens. The Spartans forge a warrior code. Philosophers like Socrates and Plato and Aristotle shape the very language of thought. We will witness the clash with Persia, the triumphs of the Olympic Games, the tragic dramas of Aeschylus and Euripides. And then, in time, we will follow the rise of a young Macedonian king, Alexander the Great, who carries Greek culture to the edge of India, reshaping the ancient world. But let us not rush. This story is not a sprint, but a gentle walk through shaded courtyards and olive groves, across marble colonnades and mountain passes. It is a story not only of kings and thinkers, but of farmers and sailors, potters and priestesses, children and elders. As we begin, let your mind ease into the rhythm of the past. Picture a whitewashed home on a hillside. A fig tree stretches over a stone path. A terracotta oil lamp glows in the evening light. From the harbor below, the sound of waves. In the courtyard, a lyre strums softly as a mother tells her child the tale of Heracles and his 12 labors. This is ancient Greece not as a textbook, but as a lived world. A place of myth and meaning, of sunlight and shadow. A place where the human spirit stretched itself toward greatness, even as it wrestled with war, division, and doubt. And so, as your eyes grow heavy and your breath deepens, we begin our voyage not to conquer the past, but to walk beside it, to listen, to understand, to remember. Sleep now if you wish. Let the story carry you. We will be here, walking slowly, step by step, into the heart of ancient Greece. As we drift back more than 4,000 years, the landscape of the Aegean shifts before us. We arrive not in bustling Athens or at the steps of the Parthenon, but on an island wrapped in sea mist and legend. This is Crete, home of the Minoan civilization, one of the earliest complex societies in Europe. The Minoans, named after the legendary king Minos, emerge around 2000 BCE. Their palaces are not the grim fortresses of warlords, but sprawling, open structures designed for light and movement. At Knossos, the largest of these palatial centers, we wander through sunlit courtyards, grand staircases, and frescoed walls alive with color scenes of acrobats leaping over bulls, of dancers in flowing robes, of dolphins gliding through deep blue seas. The air here is warm and salt-tinged, carrying the smell of olives and the gentle hum of trade. For the Minoans are masters of the sea. Their ships travel from Crete to Egypt, Cyprus, and the Levant, bringing with them pottery, saffron, and fine textiles. In return, they receive copper, ivory, and exotic treasures from distant lands. The palace at Knossos is more than a royal residence. It is a center of administration, religion, and art, a place where grain is stored, rituals are performed, and records are kept. These records are written in a mysterious script known as Linear A, still undeciphered, leaving the inner workings of Minoan society wrapped in silence. What we do know is that Minoan life appears remarkably peaceful. The absence of massive fortifications suggests a society less consumed by warfare than their successors. The emphasis on nature, fertility, and the sea suggests a worldview closely tied to the rhythms of the earth and tides. Their goddess-centered religion, represented in figurines of women with serpents or open-armed stances, hints at a reverence for the divine feminine. But nothing lasts forever. Around 1450 BCE, Minoan palaces begin to fall. Some scholars point to natural disasters, perhaps the massive eruption of Thera, modern-day Santorini, which may have triggered tsunamis and climate disruption. Others see signs of invasion, particularly from a rising power to the north, the Mycenaeans. We now journey to the Greek mainland, to a world of citadels and kings, of bronze weapons and epic tales. The Mycenaeans, flourishing from around 1600 to 1100 BCE, are a people of power and pride. Their cities, Mycenae, Pylos, Tiryns, and Thebes, are perched atop hills, protected by massive cyclopean walls made of stone so large that later, Greeks believed only giants could have moved them. At the heart of each citadel lies a megarona great hall with a central hearth, painted walls, and a throne. These are the seats of warrior kings, whose wealth is visible in golden death masks, ornate weapons, and elaborate tombs shaped like beehives, called tholos tombs. Here, life is more hierarchical than in Minoan Crete. Society is stratified, and the ruling elite known as Wanax oversee land, trade, and tribute. The Mycenaeans adopt many elements from the Minoan art styles, religious motifs, even writing. But their script, Linear B, is an early form of Greek, and it is through these tablets that we hear the earliest whispers of the Greek language. The gods of later Greek mythology begin to emerge here as well. Zeus, Poseidon, Hera, and others appear in administrative records, suggesting an early pantheon already taking shape. But it is in the realm of legend that the Mycenaeans most deeply capture the imagination. It is they who sail to Troy, across the Aegean, in pursuit of honor and vengeance. Though the Iliad is composed centuries later, its heroes Agamemnon, Menelaus, Achilles, Odysseus are rooted in the Mycenaean world. The palatial ruins, the warrior graves, the chariots and boar-tusk helmets all echo the age Homer sings of. Yet just as the Minoans declined, so too do the Mycenaeans. Around 1200 BCE, the great palaces burn. Trade routes falter. Writing disappears. The causes remain mysterious. Some speak of invasion by the sea peoples, others of internal collapse, famine, or social unrest. Whatever the reason, Greece enters a period of silence. A dark age where monumental building ceases, cities shrink, and the written word vanishes. But amid the ash, the stories remain. The oral tradition flourishes. Poets and singers known as oidoi carry the tales of old-of gods and giants, of homecoming and loss across generations. These stories, passed from memory to memory, will one day be written down, becoming the Iliad and the Odyssey. And in time, new settlements rise. Small, scattered communities begin to forge new identities. They do not forget the past, but they reshape it, turning Mycenaean ruins into the tombs of heroes, their own villages into budding polis, or city-states. As we drift through the 9th and 8th centuries BCE, we see the stirrings of revival. Iron tools replace bronze, pottery becomes more refined, and most importantly, the Greeks adopt a revolutionary new tool, the alphabet. Borrowed and adapted from the Phoenicians, the Greek alphabet allows for greater expression, recording not just lists of goods, but thoughts, stories, poems. With it, the Iliad and Odyssey are written down epics that will shape Greek culture for centuries to come. It is from these poetic foundations that the Greek identity is born. They begin to see themselves not only as Athenians or Spartans, but as Hellenes' descendants of a shared mythical past, worshippers of the same gods, speakers of dialects of the same language. The term Pan-Hellenism emerges slowly, a sense of cultural unity despite political division. And so, we stand at the threshold of the Archaic period. The Minoans and Mycenaeans have vanished, yet their echoes linger in frescoes and fragments, in myths and memories. Their seashell-shaped vases, their winding labyrinths, their fortified walls all speak softly through the ages. The Greeks of the 8th and 7th centuries will look back on this ancient world with awe and reverence. They will call it the time of heroes, of demigods, of divine favor and tragedy. And even today, the ruins of Knossos and Mycenae hold a special magicus, if, just beyond the weathered stone, the stories still stir. Now, dear listener, let your breath deepen. Imagine the moonlight on the stones of a forgotten palace, the scent of time in the air, a lyre's melody rising from a hearthside as elders speak of long-lost kings. You are drifting, slowly, through the Bronze Age, through a world of mystery and beginnings. In the chapters to come, we will follow the rise of the city-state, the birth of democracy, the flowering of philosophy, and the bold campaigns of Alexander the Great. But for now, sleep gently, surrounded by the soft pulse of memory. The Aegean waves still whisper to the shores, and the past, like the sea, never truly sleeps. As the 9th and 8th centuries before the Common Era unfold, Greece awakens from its long slumber. The chaos of the Bronze Age collapse gives way to something new, something both humble and profound. From scattered villages and fading memories, the polis, or city-state, begins to emerge. The word polis means more than just a city. It is a community, a shared identity, a microcosm of the cosmos. Each polis includes not just the urban center, but also the surrounding countryside, the fields, pastures, and sacred groves that feed and define it. It is here, in these growing communities, that the seeds of Greek political thought, citizenship, and communal life begin to take root. As we walk the narrow, sunlit streets of an early polis, we notice its key features. There is an acropolis, a high hill crowned with temples, both a place of worship and a refuge in times of war. At its feet lies the agora, the open market and meeting place where goods are traded and ideas exchanged. Beyond the agora stretch houses of stone and clay, homes of potters, weavers, farmers, and blacksmiths. Olive trees line the hills, and goats bleat softly in the distance. These early polis are fiercely independent. Athens, Sparta, Corinth, Argos, and Thebes develops its own customs, its own laws, even its own coinage. And yet, they are all unmistakably Greek. They share a language, a pantheon of gods, a love for poetry, and a sense of honor and competition. This competition is not only military or athletic, but cultural. Poets like Hesiod, writing in the 8th century BCE, give voice to a people trying to understand their place in the cosmos. His theogony tells the story of the gods, a divine genealogy that brings order to the mythic world. His Works and Days, by contrast, speaks to the toil of farmers, the turning of seasons, the quiet dignity of labor, and then, across the plains of Elis, a new tradition begins to styrone that will become a symbol of Greek unity for centuries to come. The Olympic Games. First held in 776 BCE, the Games are a religious festival in honor of Zeus, held at the sanctuary of Olympia. Athletes from across the Greek world gather to compete in foot races, wrestling, chariot races, and the brutal pankration, a no-holds-barred combat sport. Victors are crowned with simple olive wreaths, yet their glory echoes across the polis. The Olympics and other Pan-Hellenic festivals, such as those at Delphi, Isthmia, and Nemea, foster a fragile but persistent sense of shared Greek identity. Though the city-states may quarrel or go to war, they are united in worship, language, and a deep reverence for already excellence, both physical and moral. Meanwhile, as polis solidify at home, a new wave of movement begins, one that will carry Greek culture far beyond the Aegean. This is the age of colonization, spanning roughly from 750 to 550 BCE. Faced with rising populations, limited arable land, and internal unrest, many Greek communities send out settlers to establish new cities across the Mediterranean and Black Sea. The journey of a colonist is filled with ritual and risk. Before departing, they consult the Delphic oracle, seeking Apollo's guidance. The oikistes, or founder, is chosen carefully, for his task is great, to lead his people across the sea, to find land, to build temples and walls, and to lay the foundations of a new polis. From Sicily to southern Italy, from North Africa to the coasts of modern-day Turkey and Ukraine, Greek colonies bloom like scattered stars. Syracuse, Ephesus, Massalia, modern-day Marseille, Byzantium, these are not mere outposts, but full-fledged city-states, carrying the language, religion, and customs of the motherland. Trade flourishes. Greek ships carry pottery, olive oil, wine, and silver across the seas. In return, they bring back grain, timber, gold, and new ideas. The Greeks encounter Phoenicians, Egyptians, Etruscans, and Persians, absorbing influences even as they assert their own identity. We see this cultural fusion in art and architecture. Black figure pottery, adorned with mythic scenes, becomes a prized export. Temples grow more elaborate, with rows of fluted columns and sculpted pediments. The early Doric and Ionic architectural orders emerge, laying the groundwork for the splendor of classical Greece. Yet the most profound transformation is political. As cities grow in size and wealth, questions arise. Who holds power? Who decides the laws? In many polis, the old aristocracy's landed families descended from warriors, and kings begin to lose their grip. Their rule is challenged by rising merchants, artisans, and farmers. Tensions flare, and in some cities, these conflicts lead to the rise of tyrants, not necessarily cruel rulers, but men who seize power outside the traditional structures, often with popular support. In Corinth, Cypselus becomes tyrant in the 7th century BCE, building roads, temples, and trade networks. In Athens, tensions between aristocrats and commoners grow so intense that in 594 BCE, a statesman named Solon is appointed to reform the laws. Solon's reforms are a crucial moment. He cancels debts, bans debt slavery, and reorganizes political participation by wealth rather than noble birth. Though not a democracy in the modern sense, his Athens is a step closer to broader inclusion and civic fairness. Solon famously declares, "I gave the people as much power as is sufficient, neither robbing the great of their honor, nor giving the poor more than is just." Elsewhere, Sparta takes a different path. A rigid, militarized society, Sparta is ruled by 2 kings and a council of elders. Its citizen soldiers, the Spartiates, live lives of discipline and austerity, trained from youth in the agog, a brutal system of education and military preparation. Sparta's system is designed to maintain control over the Helots, a large enslaved population who work the land. While Athens experiments with reform and participation, Sparta hardens into an oligarchy, with a singular focus: military supremacy. Despite their differences, both Athens and Sparta reflect the evolving complexity of Greek political life. The polis is not static, it is a dynamic organism, constantly negotiating the balance between freedom and order, tradition and innovation. Philosophers begin to ask not just how to rule, but how to live. The pre-Socratic thinkers such as Thales, Anaximander, and Heraclitus seek to explain the cosmos through reason rather than myth. Their inquiries into water, fire, motion, and change lay the groundwork for natural philosophy and science. And all the while, the gods remain present. Zeus, king of the sky; Athena, wise protector of cities; Apollo, radiant archer of truth and music; Aphrodite, born of sea foam. The pantheon of Olympus is woven into every aspect of life: festivals, oaths, sacrifices, and the founding myths of each polis. Each city-state has its own patron deity. Athens, of course, honors Athena, while Corinth venerates Aphrodite, and Delphi is sacred to Apollo, whose oracle speaks in riddled wisdom from the temple of Apollo atop Mount Parnassus. As we close this chapter, we stand at a new threshold. The Greek world is now wide and varied. From the streets of Miletus in Ionia to the harbors of Naples in Magna Graecia, Greek language and culture flow like currents. The polis are no longer isolated. They are part of a great network, connected by trade, by religion, and by the restless desire to know, to build, to strive. Let your breath slow now. Imagine the golden sun setting over the Aegean. Fishermen draw in their nets. A mother lights an oil lamp. Somewhere a young boy begins to recite Homer's verses by heart, his voice rising and falling with ancient rhythm. This is the world of the polis, a world of community, of conflict, and of endless possibility. In the next chapter, we will follow Greece into the fires of war and the heights of unity, as Persian kings cast their gaze westward and the Greeks are forced to stand together. But for now, let sleep take you. Let the quiet wisdom of the ancients drift through your dreams. The stars above are the same ones that watched over Solon, over Spartans, over poets and sailors and philosophers, and their story, like the sea, goes ever on. As we drift into the 5th century BCE, the Greek world stands at the edge of a vast transformation. The city-states, so proud and independent, soon face a challenge unlike any before, a confrontation with the might of the Persian Empire, the greatest power the world has yet seen. To the east, across the Aegean Sea and beyond the mountains of Anatolia, lies the Empire of Persia, ruled first by Cyrus the Great, then Darius I, and later his son Xerxes I. The Persians command a realm that stretches from the Indus River in the east to the Aegean in the west, encompassing many peoples and cultures. They are masters of administration, road building, and wealth. Their capital cities, Persepolis, Susa, and Ecbatana, wonders of the ancient world. But to the Persians, the scattered, argumentative Greek city-states are little more than an unruly frontier. And when some of these city-states, particularly in Ionia, the Greek settlements on the coast of Asia Minor, rebel against Persian rule around 499 BCE, the empire takes notice. Athens, still finding its political footing after reforms by Cleisthenes, sends ships to aid the Ionian revolt. This act, though small, is like a spark in dry grass. Darius, the Persian king, vows revenge. He sends envoys demanding submission, earth, and water, the traditional tokens of surrender. Many cities comply, but Athens and Sparta refuse, casting the envoys into pits and wells. And so, in 490 BCE, Darius sends a fleet across the sea to punish Athens. The Persians land at Marathon, a plain northeast of the city. The Athenians, joined by a small force from Plataea, march to meet them. There, in the morning light, the Athenians do the unthinkable. Though outnumbered, they charge the Persian lines, catching them by surprise. The Persian formation breaks, and the invaders flee to their ships. It is a stunning victory and a defining moment in Greek memory. According to legend, a runner named Phidippides dashes from Marathon to Athens some 26 miles to announce the triumph before collapsing. But the Persian threat is not over. 10 years later, Darius's son Xerxes launches a new invasion, one far greater in scale. He builds bridges across the Hellespont and carves roads through mountains. His army, vast beyond counting, marches into Greece, accompanied by a mighty fleet. As the historian Herodotus tells us, the sea was hidden by his ships, and the earth shook beneath his men. This time, the Greeks begin to unite. A coalition forms. Athens, Sparta, and other cities put aside rivalries. Sparta takes command on land, while Athens, under the leadership of Themistocles, commands the sea. In 480 BCE, the Persian army advances through Thermopylae, a narrow pass between mountain and sea. There, King Leonidas of Sparta and a small force, including 300 Spartans, hold the pass for 3 days. Though ultimately overwhelmed, their sacrifice becomes legendary, a symbol of courage and resistance. Meanwhile, Themistocles prepares for the naval battle to come. He has persuaded Athens to invest in a fleet of triremeslic, fast warships powered by 170 rowers. These ships prove crucial. Later that year, the Persian navy enters the narrow straits of Salamis, near Athens. There, the smaller, more agile Greek fleet ambushes them. In the chaos of close-quarters battle, the Persians falter. Greek victory at Salamis turns the tide. The following year, in 479 BCE, a combined Greek force defeats the remaining Persian army at Plataea, while the Persian fleet is routed at Mycale. The invasion ends. Persia withdraws. Greece is free. This victory, against all odds, inspires a new age, particularly in Athens, where pride and confidence blossom into extraordinary creativity. We now enter what historians call the classical perioda, golden age of philosophy, art, drama, and architecture. And at its heart is Athens. Under the leadership of Pericles, Athens becomes a beacon of democracy and culture. He oversees the building of the Parthenon, a majestic temple to Athena that still crowns the Acropolis. Crafted by architects Ictinus and Callicrates, adorned by sculptor Phidias, the Parthenon embodies balance, harmony, and the Greek ideal of beauty. Daily life in Athens is vibrant. Citizens gather in the agora to debate, shop, and listen to speeches. Plays are performed in open-air theater tragedies by Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides, and comedies by Aristophanes, which mock politics, gods, and philosophers alike. In philosophy, new voices rise. Socrates, the ever-questioning stonemason, walks the city barefoot, challenging assumptions and seeking truth. He teaches through dialogue, through asking rather than answering. His famous method, the Socratic method, becomes a foundation of critical thinking. Socrates leaves no writings, but his student, Plato, preserves his thought in elegant dialogues. Plato founds the Academy, a place of learning and philosophical inquiry. His student, Aristotle, later founds his own school, the Lyceum, and writes on everything from ethics to biology. Through these minds, Athens becomes not just a city, but an idea. Athenian democracy, while limited to free male citizens, is unprecedented. The ecclesia, or assembly, votes on laws. The boule, a council of 500, prepares legislation. Public officials are often chosen by lot. Though flawed, this system empowers ordinary citizens to shape their city. And yet, Athens is not without contradiction. Its wealth comes in part from the Delian League, a coalition of Greek states originally formed to defend against Persia. Over time, Athens transforms this league into an empire demanding tribute, enforcing loyalty and crushing dissent. Tensions rise between Athens and Sparta, whose austere values clash with Athenian ambition. The result is the Peloponnesian War, a protracted conflict that will dominate the end of the 5th century. But for now, let us linger in the glow of Athenian brilliance. We imagine the gleam of marble under the sun, the scent of olive oil in the marketplace, the hum of debate in the Nix, where citizens gather to decide their city's fate. A girl learns to weave in her home. A boy listens to Homer by lamplight. Philosophers stroll beneath colonnades, lost in thought. The Acropolis, gleaming above it all, reminds Athenians of their patron goddess, of their past struggles, and of the ideals they strive toward: excellence, wisdom, and civic duty. As we drift into sleep, we remember that even in this age of glory, shadows gather on the horizon. Hubris, rivalry, and war will soon test the very foundations of this golden world. But in this moment, in this chapter of time, Athens shines. The stars above the Aegean shimmer gently. The breeze from the hills carries the scent of thyme and sea salt. And the voices of Socrates and Sophocles, of Pericles and Phidias, still echo, soft as whispers in the night. As we drift gently into the later 5th century BCE, the sun begins to set on the golden age of Athens. The columns of the Parthenon still gleam in the warm light, but beneath the marble beauty, tensions grow. The unity forged during the Persian Wars gives way to rivalry, mistrust, and ambition. And at the heart of this unraveling lies a conflict between two very different visions of Greek life: the democratic brilliance of Athens and the austere discipline of Sparta. This great struggle is known as the Peloponnesian War, and it begins in 431 BCE. It is not a single war, but a series of campaigns, sieges, and shifting alliances that span nearly 3 decades. More than a clash of arms, it is a test of ideas, of empire and liberty, of strategy and stubbornness. Athens, with its strong navy, dominates the Aegean. Its empire stretches across islands and coasts, linked by tribute and enforced by triremes. Sparta, by contrast, leads the Peloponnesian League, a land-based coalition centered in the southern Greek mainland. Its society is built on discipline and simplicity, its strength in its hoplite warriors and conservative values. The war begins over a quarrel between smaller allies, Corcyra, Corinth, Potidaea, but soon engulfs the major powers. Pericles, still guiding Athens, believes the war can be won through patience and strategy. He brings the population inside the city walls and avoids major land battles, relying instead on Athenian naval supremacy to wear Sparta down. But the plan has unforeseen consequences. In the crowded city, a plague breaks out. The illness spreads rapidly, killing tens of thousands, including Pericles himself. Without his steady hand, Athenian politics become volatile, swaying between hawks and pragmatists. The historian Thucydides, an Athenian general and later exile, chronicles the war with calm detachment and deep insight. His history, still read today, avoids myth and instead explores human nature, how fear, honor, and interest drive decisions in war and peace alike. The war drags on, with shifting fortunes. At sea, Athens wins key victories. On land, Sparta ravages the countryside. Allies defect. Revolts simmer. The Sicilian expedition, a massive Athenian campaign launched in 415 BCE to conquer Sicily, ends in utter disaster. The entire fleet is lost. Thousands of soldiers are captured or killed. Hope begins to fade. Sparta finds new allies, most notably Persia, now happy to see the Greek world divided and weakened. With Persian gold, Sparta builds a fleet and challenges Athens at sea. The final blow comes in 405 BCE at Aegospotami, where the Athenian navy is trapped and destroyed. The next year, in 404 BCE, Athens surrenders. The walls are torn down, its empire dissolves. The war leaves deep scars across Greece, cities are ruined, populations displaced. The dream of a unified, free Hellas is shattered. Sparta imposes oligarchic governments, known as dikarchies, in former Athenian allies. In Athens itself, a group known as the 30 Tyrants rules briefly with harshness before democracy is restored. Sparta, now the leading power, soon finds itself resented and overextended. It lacks the administrative skill to manage an empire, and its narrow citizenship limits its capacity to adapt. Its brief hegemony gives way to new rivalries. In the early 4th century, Thebes, a city north of Athens, rises to prominence. The Sacred Band, an elite unit of 150 male lovers trained in unity and valor, becomes the pride of Theban arms. In 371 BCE, at the Battle of Leuctra, Theban general Epaminondas defeats the Spartan army, shattering the myth of Spartan invincibility. For a moment, Thebes becomes the dominant force in Greece. But no city can hold such power for long. The endless cycles of war and rivalry leave the Greek world fragmented, weary, and vulnerable. And yet, amid this political decline, the cultural flame still burns. In philosophy, Plato continues the legacy of Socrates, writing dialogues that explore justice, love, knowledge, and the ideal state. His vision of a philosopher king set forth in the Republic reflects both hope and frustration with the political chaos of his time. Aristotle, Plato's student, takes a different path. He is an observer, a classifier, a seeker of causes. In his politics, he studies constitutions. In his poetics, he examines tragedy. His works touch every field: ethics, biology, rhetoric, logic. Where Plato seeks ideals, Aristotle seeks understanding in the real. In the arts, tragedy continues to evolve. Euripides, writing with a sharp, sometimes skeptical voice, questions the gods, the role of women, and the cost of war. His play, The Trojan Women, reflects the suffering of those left behind after conquesta, quiet lament amid the noise of history. Life for ordinary Greeks is shaped by these changes. In the countryside, farmers tend olives and vines, wary of raids and taxes. In the cities, artisans and merchants adapt to new rulers and markets. The agora still buzzes, but the tone is more cautious. The glory of the past lingers in memory, even as uncertainty clouds the future. And through it all, the idea of the polis, the city-state, remains central. Each polis is a world unto itself, a community with its own laws, gods, festivals, and heroes. Yet the very independence that once gave Greek life its energy now becomes a barrier to unity. No one city can lead for long. Cooperation proves fragile. Ambition outpaces wisdom. As we drift deeper into the 4th century BCE, a new force begins to stir in the north. Beyond Mount Olympus, in the wild hills and forests of Macedonia, a kingdom once dismissed as semi-barbaric is growing stronger. Its king, Philip II, watches the feuding Greek cities with interest and prepares to act. But before we turn our gaze northward, let us pause for a moment. Let us imagine the hushed silence of the Athenian Academy at dusk. Plato walks beneath the olive trees, speaking softly with his students. The air smells of stone and time. Far below, the city lights flicker like stars fallen to earth. The wars are over, but their echoes remain. The polis has given the world its finest thoughts and deepest questions, and though it falters now, it has left something permanent, a tradition of inquiry, of art, of striving toward the good and the beautiful. Let these thoughts settle gently around us, like dust on an ancient vase. The story of Greece is not finished. It is about to enter a new phase, shaped not by cities, but by kings. As the sun rises over the northern frontier of Greece, we turn our gaze to a land of forests, hills, and untamed ambition, Macedonia. Long viewed by southern Greeks as a distant cousin, rough and unsophisticated, this kingdom has quietly been transforming. And at its heart is a ruler with both vision and cunning, Philip II. Philip ascends the throne in 359 BCE and begins reshaping his kingdom. He builds a powerful army, centered around the Macedonian phalanxa formation of long pikes and disciplined foot soldiers. He reforms politics, extends alliances, and carefully exploits the disunity of the southern Greek city-states. While Athens, Thebes, and Sparta bicker and rebuild, Philip acts. He conquers nearby tribes, secures his borders, and moves south. In 338 BCE, at the Battle of Chaeronea, his forces decisively defeat a coalition of Greeks led by Thebes and Athens. Among his troops that day is his young son, Alexander, just 18 years old. Philip does not destroy Greece. Instead, he creates a League of Corinth, claiming to unite the Greeks in a common cause, war against Persia, the old enemy. But before he can launch this grand campaign, he is struck down in 336 BCE at a celebration, the motives unclear. And so, at just 20 years old, Alexander becomes king. He is brilliant, charismatic, and restlessly ambitious. Tutored in youth by Aristotle, Alexander carries with him not just military skill, but a love of Greek culture, philosophy, and myth. He dreams not only of conquest, but of glory, of becoming a second Achilles, a living legend. His campaign begins in 334 BCE as he crosses the Hellespont into Asia Minor. At Troy, he honors the tomb of Achilles, and then, step by step, he begins to dismantle the mighty Persian Empire. At the Battle of Granicus, he crushes local Persian forces. At Issus, he defeats King Darius III himself, despite being outnumbered. He marches down the eastern Mediterranean coast, taking Tyre, Gaza, and finally Egypt, where he is welcomed as a liberator and crowned as a pharaoh. In Egypt, he founds a new city, Alexandria. It will become one of the greatest centers of learning in the ancient world, home to the legendary Library of Alexandria and the towering Pharos lighthouse. But Alexander is not yet finished. he turns east, deep into the Persian heartland. At Gaugamela, in 331 BCE, he defeats Darius once more, breaking the spine of the empire. Babylon, Susa, Persepolis' ancient capitals of unthinkable wealth fall to him. In Persepolis, his men set fire to the royal palace, a symbolic end to the old world. But Alexander keeps moving. He chases Darius into the mountains, though the Persian king is killed by his own men before capture. Still unsatisfied, Alexander presses into Central Asia, across deserts and rivers, into the unknown. He marries a noblewoman, Roxana, in Bactria. He adopts Persian customs, causing tension among his Greek companions. His vision is expanding, not just of Greece ruling Persia, but of a new, blended world. He recruits Persians into his army, wears Eastern dress, and calls for unity among his diverse peoples. In 326 BCE, he reaches the Indus River and fights the fierce king Porus in what is now Pakistan. But here, his weary soldiers refuse to go further. After years of relentless marching, they long for home. Reluctantly, Alexander turns back. The journey is arduous. Many die in the Gedrosian desert, where heat and thirst torment the retreating army. Yet Alexander endures, always at the front, always seeking the next horizon. He returns to Babylon in 323 BCE and begins planning new campaigns, perhaps to Arabia or beyond. But suddenly, he falls ill. Fever takes hold. Within days, the conqueror of worlds is gone. He dies at age 32, having never lost a battle. His empire, stretching from Greece to Egypt, from the Mediterranean to the Indus, is the largest the world had ever seen. But it is also fragile. No clear heir emerges, and his generals, known as the Diadochi, begin to carve the empire into pieces. Thus begins the Hellenistic age. The word Hellenistic comes from Hellas, the Greek word for Greece. It refers to the spread of Greek culture far beyond its traditional borders, blended now with Egyptian, Persian, and Asian influences. This new era, from roughly 323 to 30 BCE, is one of both immense creativity and growing complexity. Greek becomes the common language across vast regions, used in trade, administration, and scholarship. Cities founded by Alexander and his successors, Alexandria in Egypt, Antioch in Syria, Pergamon in Asia, Minor, become vibrant centers of learning and cosmopolitan life. In Alexandria, the Museuma, a great research institution, attracts scholars from across the Mediterranean. The library, perhaps the most ambitious ever conceived, gathers scrolls and books from every known culture. Poets like Callimachus and scientists like Eratosthenes and Archimedes flourish in this golden atmosphere of inquiry. Art and sculpture also evolve. Where classical works sought idealized beauty, Hellenistic art embraces emotion and realism. We see old age, struggle, laughter, and grief carved in marble. The famous Laocoon group, with its twisting agony and serpents, shows a dramatic new expressiveness. Philosophy adapts to a changing world. Stoicism, founded by Zeno of Citium, teaches virtue through reason and the acceptance of fate. Epicureanism, led by Epicurus, offers peace through moderation, friendship, and the avoidance of fear. In an era of uncertain borders and rulers, these schools provide inner stability. But the Hellenistic kingdoms divided among Alexander's generals are not always peaceful. Ptolemaic Egypt, Seleucid Asia, and Antigonid Macedonia often clash. Royal courts brim with intrigue. Armies march not for freedom, but for dynastic control. Still, Greek culture remains the common thread, woven through these diverse lands. Women in the Hellenistic world sometimes find more visibility, especially in royal families. Queens like Arsinoe II of Egypt wield real power, and female poets such as Anata and Gnosis write verses remembered for centuries. Trade flourishes. Silk from China, spices from India, glass from Syria, papyrus from Egypt. These goods crisscross the ancient world. Along with them travel ideas, stories, and beliefs. The ancient Mediterranean becomes more connected than ever before. Yet, like all things, the Hellenistic world too has its limits. New powers stir in the West. Rome, once a small city in central Italy, has begun expanding. It conquers its neighbors, defeats Carthage in the Punic Wars, and sets its sights on the eastern Mediterranean. One by one, the Hellenistic kingdoms fall under Roman sway. In 168 BCE, Macedonia is defeated. In 146 BCE, Corinth is sacked. By 30 BCE, after the death of Cleopatra VII, the last of the Ptolemaic rulers, Egypt becomes a Roman province. The Hellenistic age ends, and Greece becomes a part of a larger empire. And yet, Greek culture does not disappear. Far from it. The Romans revere Greek art, literature, and philosophy. They copy Greek statues, read Homer and Plato, and send their children to study in Athens. In a way, Greece conquers Rome not by arms, but by ideas. So let us pause here, in the quiet twilight of the Hellenistic world. Imagine a scholar in Alexandria, lighting an oil lamp as night falls. Scrolls are unrolled. Ink flows gently. Outside, the harbor glows with lanterns, ships swaying softly in the tide. The dream of Alexander has faded, but his legacy endures in stone and scroll, in language and learning. The Greek world has changed, but it lives on in ways even he could not have foreseen. Let your mind rest now, gentle traveler. Let the distant hum of Alexandria's streets lull you. The stars wheel above as they always have, silent witnesses to the story of Greece. And in the next chapter, we will explore how this legacy echoes onward into Rome, into Byzantium, into us. As the waves of time recede, the echoes of ancient Greece remain. Though its cities have crumbled and its heroes sleep beneath stone, its ideas, language, and spirit ripple outward through the ages and into our world. We begin, fittingly, with the Romans, who inherit the mantle of Hellenic culture. After conquering the Greek world, they do not erase it, they embrace it. Greek art, architecture, literature, and philosophy are absorbed into Roman life. Roman elites send their sons to Athens for education. Statues are sculpted in the Greek style. Greek myths inspire Roman poets like Virgil and Ovid. The great Roman pantheon borrows freely from the gods of Mount Olympus. Zeus becomes Jupiter, Aphrodite becomes Venus. Even the very form of government, the idea of a republic, draws upon earlier Greek models of civic participation and democratic debate. Through Rome, Greek knowledge is carried westward. The works of Plato, Aristotle, Hippocrates, and Euclid are copied and preserved. In distant provinces, Gaul, Iberia, Britannia, students read texts first penned in Athens or Alexandria. And when Rome itself falls, it is the Byzantine Empire in Constantinople that continues to preserve the flame. The Byzantines speak Greek. They read Homer, consult Galen, and debate Aristotle. Their scholars copy manuscripts with painstaking care, shielding them from the tides of time. And then, centuries later, that knowledge flows west once more. In the heart of Islamic civilization, during its own golden age, Greek science and philosophy are studied and expanded. Arab scholars translate Aristotle into Arabic. Mathematicians build upon Euclidean geometry and develop algebra. Physicians like Avicenna rework Hippocratic medicine. Greek thought becomes a bridge between ancient and modern, East and West. By the time of the Renaissance, Europe rediscovers these treasures. Greek statues are unearthed. Texts long forgotten are retranslated into Latin. Artists like Michelangelo and Raphael imitate the ideal forms of classical sculpture. Philosophers return to Plato and Aristotle, mining their writings for truths both eternal and urgent. In the Enlightenment, the legacy grows stronger still. The ancient Greek idea of reason logos becomes the guiding principle of science, ethics, and politics. Thinkers across Europe cite Socrates, Democritus, and Epicurus as they craft new visions of liberty, equality, and rational inquiry. In politics, too, the shadow of Athens falls long. The modern idea of democracy, born in the Athenian ecclesia, inspires revolutions in France and America. The Parthenon becomes a symbol of civic virtue. The Greek language even gives us the very word, demokratia, rule by the people. But the legacy of Greece is not only in politics or philosophy. It lives also in the quieter realms of beauty, imagination, and thought. In literature, echoes of Greek tragedy and epic shape the stories we tell. The journey of Odysseus finds kin in every wandering hero, the sorrow of Antigone, the defiance of Medea, the fate of Oedipus. These ancient dramas still unfold on modern stages. In architecture, the columns of Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian design grace buildings from London to Washington, D.C., symbols of order and harmony. In art, the Greek search for proportion and form still guides the sculptor's chisel, the painter's brush. In science, the methods pioneered by Thales, Archimedes, and Aristotle, observation, deduction, classification, form the backbone of the scientific method. Astronomy, geometry, biology, and ethics all bear the fingerprints of Greek thinkers. And in our language, Greek endures. Words like democracy, philosophy, theater, biology, astronomy, and rhetorical flow from Greek roots. Even our alphabet, through Latin, carries the shape of Greek letters: alpha, beta, gamma. Yet beyond the tangible, the legacy of ancient Greece lies in a certain way of seeing the world. A curiosity about nature, about the heavens, about the human heart. A belief that knowledge is possible and that asking questions is noble. A conviction that beauty matters, that the world can be understood not only through myth or faith, but through reason, dialogue, and observation. The Greeks gave us the drama of inquiry, the tension between competing truths, the Socratic method of probing and reflecting. They taught us to wrestle with paradox, to explore the self, to seek excellence in all things, what they called arete. And though their world was far from perfect, with its exclusions, inequalities, and brutal wars, the vision they offered was bold. That human beings can shape their own destiny through learning, courage, and imagination. So now, as we come to the end of our long voyage through ancient Greece, let us pause beneath the olive trees once more. Picture the Acropolis glowing under moonlight. Hear the soft rustle of scrolls in the Library of Alexandria. Imagine philosophers walking in quiet colonnades, citizens debating in the agora, poets whispering verses to the sea, and let these images gently dissolve into your dreams. Let the voices of Plato and Sappho, of Pericles and Aspasia, fade into the distance like the echo of a lyre. The age of Greece has passed, but its spirit remains within you. Let sleep take you now, traveler. Let your breath slow, your thoughts quiet. The journey has been long, and the stars wheel above in silence. The story of ancient Greece has come to rest for tonight, but its light, like starlight, travels on forever.